Hi again then guys, and welcome to episode 105 of B-Road Ballers, in particular on Gran Turismo 2 for this installment. And this vehicle is a car which is one of quite a few which I've always wanted to see return to the Gran Turismo franchise. We have kind of had this car's lineage back again with the 1.3 injection BMW built Mini that is of course featured currently on Gran Turismo 6. But this one is even more special, because this car is not a late 90s remake, it's not a second production run, it's a Mark 1 1275 Mini Cooper, but specifically the rally car, the Monte Carlo Mini. Not only one of the most iconic rally cars ever, but also one of the most capable, a car which took a totally different approach to what rallying or racing in general would often do, which is big and powerful, and in a similar way to what Lotus did in the Grand Prix, they went small, light, and good through the corners instead. And that really worked well and worked in the favour of the Mini Cooper. Now this is an interesting car on Gran Turismo 2 for a couple of reasons. One thing is, although as I've mentioned before with some other classics, it's technically not a hatchback, but we are featuring it in B-Road Ballers because it's often put up against hatchbacks and considered to be that kind of car, a small city runabout. This particular version of the Mini though is significantly more exclusive and much more special than any of the other Minis that have ever been featured on Gran Turismo, because not only is it the only motorsport related Mini ever to feature in the franchise, but it's also probably the most iconic motorsport car they've ever had. Now this car is very expensive, it costs 500,000 credits, which is serious territory, especially in the hot hatch category. So what do you actually get for that? Is it just a collector's piece, or can it actually back up that kind of price and also its reputation against modern hot hatches? Especially given that that 1275 engine only puts out around 63 horsepower, which was pretty good back then, but nowadays that's more the kind of power that you'd expect from a K car. But with technology that's around 40 or 50 years old, the performance isn't necessarily guaranteed to be great. But that's the funny thing about this particular Mini, because although in the dealership it's quoted at 63 horsepower, the reality is it doesn't have 63 horsepower. It actually has 239, which is kind of strange. I don't really understand why they chose to do that, but the car, even without any upgrades, because incidentally you can't do any upgrades to this car, has 239 horsepower and an equally impressive 218 pound-feet of torque. Now in any hot hatch that would be impressive, but you put that in a 700 kilo classic rally car and you've potentially got yourself a track monster. So how does it actually perform given the 341 horsepower per tonne that you're working with? That's serious territory for any hot hatch. Now around the track you'd assume it would be good. It's small, it's light, and it's a Mini after all, which is known for its cornering ability. And it doesn't disappoint at all. This thing absolutely annihilates tight corners as if they're nothing. It's a little bit twitchier than some of the other hatchbacks, which isn't overly surprising given the amount of tuning, the amount of power it's got, how lightweight it is, and also the age of its technology, which to some degree does come through in the feel of the car, even back on a PS1 game. As far as its straight line ability goes, in terms of acceleration and top speed together, it's pretty good. The fact that it has so much more power than it's quoted as having really does help, but it goes beyond even what you'd probably expect it to be capable of in terms of acceleration. It's fantastic in terms of low-end and mid-range acceleration against pretty much any of the other hot hatches, and although the top-end speed isn't earth-shattering, it can quite comfortably get up around 200 to 210 kilometers per hour. That's pretty good, it has to be said, for a classic Mini. Now, the fact remains, 500,000 credits is still an awful lot of cash for a car like this. Not because it's bad or because it's slow, definitely not. In fact, it's quicker than a lot of the other hot hatches, even much newer ones, when they're tuned. The reason why I would say be careful about buying this car, or make sure you want it just for the purpose of wanting it rather than racing it, is that because it actually has so much more power than they say it does, there are a number of racing events which you might think you can enter, but then because the power is so much more than what they say, you actually won't be able to. So you really need to buy this car simply because you want to have it. If you're buying it with the intention of racing it, you might be disappointed because of how few events it genuinely is needed for. But overall, if you're a Mini fan, it's an essential collector's piece. It is one of my favourite cars that was featured on Gran Turismo 2 and wasn't featured since. And if you do fancy playing Gran Turismo 2 and buying some of the cars that are notable, this is definitely one that stands out from a collection point of view. But that's it overall for this particular pick. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.